I'm nervous. This is by far the largest group of people that have heard this story or will hear this story up to this point. There are maybe a handful of people that know this story. And so thank you for letting me share it. Thank you for having this space.
Thank you.
So December 20th, 2016, I am 2 months shy of my 21st birthday, and I've just been delivered the news that I have ovarian cancer. And my whole world shattered. And I didn't know what to do for the first couple of weeks. The first couple of weeks I couldn't really do anything other than cry a lot and talk to my mom. I told my mom at the time that all of this first came out. I told my mom, I told my best friend who is here, and I told my boss because I felt like he needed to be kept in the loop. I am a full-time student / I was working full-time at the time. I kept doing both of those things because my main goal was to not lose any sense of normalcy. I didn't know how sick I was going to get, and luckily, on the grand spectrum of things, I didn't get that sick, but I was on several different types of medication that I probably could never pronounce the names of ever again. I watched myself lose probably close to 20 pounds. I'm a relatively small person, so that was a lot. And I watched the veins in my feet and my ankles and my arms all turn black. And I kept going to work and I kept going to school, and I was lucky because it was winter and I could cover all of that stuff up with a smile and a sweater, and I could pretend like everything was okay. The Christmas Eve of last year was probably one of the hardest days of my life. I remember sitting on the couch with my parents and my grandpa, and we were watching the Disneyland Christmas parade. And I was sitting on the couch, crying silently, and nobody knew because I didn't want anybody to know. But it was just that I can remember everything about that moment so vividly, and I think I had the thought to myself, this is a defining moment. This is a pivotal moment. Nothing is ever going to really be the same after this. So I was on medication from December up until March, April of this year. They let me, my birthday is the end of February, they let me have essentially the weekend off, the weekend that I turned 21, so that I could try to be normal for a little bit, which was good. It was a good break. In March, April, I was done with my medication. I was lucky enough to really only need 1 round of the medication, although they did have to up it after I took that weekend off for my birthday. And I remember being at work, and I worked in retail at the time, and I remember running back and forth to our bathroom at the bookstore that I worked at and throwing up really, really violently, and then going back to the register and pretending like nothing had happened. So after I finished my round of medication, they obviously had to do a bunch more tests to make sure that I didn't need more, that I wouldn't need surgery down the line. And I remember I was sitting in a cold, sterile room with 4 old white male doctors who had had internal ultrasounds and external ultrasounds and all sorts of pokes and prods and speculums and pretty much anything you can think of on me, inside me, looking at me. And they told me that I was cancer-free, and I still am. I've been getting I have a clean bill of health, essentially, right now. But they did tell me at that day that I was cancer-free. They also told me that I would probably never be able to have children on my own, or that it would be very, very, very difficult. And something about being 21 and hearing that news was also very shattering. I've never really been somebody who pictures my future children or really, really, really wanted to be a mom. But all of a sudden I started having all of these thoughts come flooding in about how, and I know this isn't how this works because there's so much more to being a woman than what's inside you or what's on you. But I started basically having all these thoughts about how I was a failure because I was born into a body with all of this equipment to have children, and it doesn't work. And what does that mean? And how do I move forward from that? And how do I wrap my mind around that? I think one of the coolest things, and we actually recently re-had this conversation because I told my mom that I was doing this tonight. I'm what they call a rainbow baby. So my mom had a really traumatic miscarriage 5 years before she had me. And it took those 5 years she was having all sorts of medicine put into her and all sorts of therapy and all sorts of fertilization medicine so that she could have a child. And when you have that child after the pregnancy or the miscarriage, it's called a rainbow baby. So having that discussion with her, knowing that that's what I am and knowing that maybe one day something like that could happen to me, that was very helpful. Again, my best friend, he basically became my sounding board because I didn't know what to do or what to think or where to go. And that was also very helpful, but I think he knows this too. At a certain level, it was never really enough because he's a man and he couldn't really understand. Like he could listen and he could be empathetic, but he couldn't really understand exactly what I was going through. So I took some time, and I'm still doing this. Like I still have daily conversations with myself. What does it mean to be a woman, and what does it mean to be a mother? And I might never get to be a biological mother. That's a fact. But that doesn't mean that I'm not already a mother in certain ways. To me, I kind of made up my mind that being a mother means, how do I take care of my community?
Woo!
And
Yes!
that is my drive now. That is my focus now. How do I take care of the people that I love mentally, physically, emotionally? How do I be a mother in all ways, on all forms of the spectrum? And I think I'm still working on it today, but I've come to the realization that I'm definitely not broken, and I'm definitely not a failure.